Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ready, Set, Smart webinar series. It looks like we have people from all over the world, which is really exciting. During this series, we aim to share strategies for creating instructional activities, improving teacher workflow, and increasing student engagement using SMART. So please introduce yourself in the chat while we are getting started, and make sure that your chat is set to everyone instead of host and panelist so that you're continuing that conversation with everybody attending our webinar today. So we are going to meet the Smart Notebook Pillar team. Our team will be offering additional webinar sessions specifically on Smart Notebook. We hope you will join our future sessions to learn more. So let's meet the team. Dan, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jen. My name is Dan Scheneman, and I am the Smart Technical Specialist down in Palm Beach in Florida, and I've been using Notebook for a long time and excited to share some of it with you guys today.
And I'm Jennifer Underwood, a professional development specialist from Florida, and I'll be here helping Dan in today's session.
Hey everybody, my name is Melody. I am a smart training specialist in Philadelphia. I'll be in the chat supporting, so if you guys have any questions, make sure to drop them in there.
And finally, I am Terry Plea. I am a training specialist with Smart Technologies. Enjoy the show. There is a lot of really good gems in here today. So Dan, take it away. Oh, no, I think Jennifer needs to finish a little bit more. Then Dan gets to take it away.
No, that's it. We're right. We're at that point. So in this week's webinar, Hidden Gems in Smart Notebook, featuring Dan. Take it away.
All right. Thanks. Happy to have everybody here today and excited to share some things in Smart Notebook that you might not know about. There may be some things you've seen before, but hopefully I'll show you some things that are really going to change the way you teach and the way you use the software. To organize all of this, we've kind of separated into some separate parts. So the first part of today's session, we're going to look at how you can customize Smart Notebook and be really efficient using it. Part two, we're going to explore the gallery a little bit further. We looked a little bit at it in our launch into Notebook sessions. We're going to dig a little deeper. And then one of my favorite tools, the activity builder during part three, and finishing it all up with some amazing math tools that you might not be familiar with. All right, so to start things out, I'm going to show you some customization and efficiency. I've been working with Smart Notebook since probably about 2006 or 2007. I've seen it go through a lot of changes, but there are a lot of things that I use that I've been using since the beginning. First is looking at some viewing options of how you're presenting your screen, customizing the toolbar at the top with the tools that you like to use, and my favorite trick of selecting all locked objects when you're editing. I want to make sure you guys know about that, as well as some other tricks for selecting and grouping. So to start off, we're going to look at some of the viewing options. So feel free to open Smart Notebook up if you have it installed on your computer and try some of this along with me. Sometimes it's nice to play around while you're learning about it. Up in the top, you do have this little screen with a magnifying glass. It gives you all your different screens, which I have listed here. My favorite is page width. It really maximizes the screen and making it large for everybody to see. This is great if you're at a smart panel, smart board, or even just like right now, presenting to you all. It just fits the screen really well. I don't have any wasted space. If I were to switch to like entire page, for instance, you'll see that you get some bars on the side, a little bit on the bottom, everything's a little bit smaller. So that's really one of the main reasons I like doing page width. And when I design my lessons, I try to design them so they fit in this window. So I actually just have it on page width and design, and I try not to have to scroll. If you do have it like on entire page, you can, or sorry, on page width, and you do have things below, you just scroll to get to them. But I try to just have everything above this little line down here. Other things that people like to use, some people like full screen. When you do full screen, you do lose all your toolbars and everything. Can show you what that looks like. You get a little floating toolbar here. Some people like that, some people don't, but it's good to know. The auto hide, I think we've talked about in previous sessions, is nice if you want to just hide away that page sorter on the side. But I will say definitely that page width is my favorite. 4K Presenter is a new thing in the last few years. What that'll do is actually open a separate program just to present your lesson. It doesn't provide all the tools, but it does provide the important tools that you would need, like your pens and other things. So play around with those and just a lot of people don't realize they have all these different options when they're presenting. All right, my other favorite thing to do is to customize my toolbar. So right now at the top, I have the default toolbar settings. One thing some people don't know that I always like to show is you can move that toolbar down to the bottom if you like with these little arrows. Really great if you're working with younger students and you want them to be able to manipulate the tools. Many people don't realize that's there. But if you click, and also just so you know, you can do that with the sidebar as well. There's the same little arrows. But the gear is your way of kind of modifying this toolbar up at the top. So one of my favorites by far is to clear ink. So if I wanted to add clear ink, I would just grab it and move it up here. I can have it fill an entire space. There's also another one I like called reset page. I'll show you what that would look like. If I put them together, you can actually maximize your space. So let's say you're getting crowded up here and you have a lot of tools, you can put two together, or anytime I can kind of drag them and move them around so that they take up a little more space and are easier to click on. If there's one that I don't think I'm going to use all the time, maybe when I'm teaching or working, I might not use this assessments, I can actually drag it down and create some more real estate up here, have more space. So those are some of the actions that I like. Some other ones that are kind of nice, I'll just put up here. We have pinning the page is another good one. And the screen capture. And I'll demo a little bit of some of these if you've never seen those before. And this, if you have a smart document camera, a lot of people don't realize you can put that right up there and get to your smart document camera. Of course, it has to be connected with a USB cable to pull that off. And then while I'm in here, I might as well show you too, you can add some tools. So some of the tools that I like to add are the calligraphy pen because it is my favorite pen. A highlighter is another nice one to have up there just so you can get to them really easy. And I think that's about it as far as my favorites that I like to add. So now just to see how some of that works, if I grab my calligraphy pen and I write, I can hit clear ink. The nice thing about this is if you use Smart Ink a lot or you use, really mainly if you're used to Smart Ink, you're just used to be able to just click and clear the ink and not have to erase it. The reset page, what that'll do is if you have movable objects on the page, those objects will all go back to their original location. So if you have the students sorting or moving objects, the reset page will just bounce it all right back. The screen capture, if you've never used it, is basically a snipping tool that you can use. And it inserts in a notebook, or you can save as a picture, copy, paste. A lot of great things with that as well. The last one is pinning the page. This is one that Terry really likes to use as well. When you pin a page, you actually have to switch to my dual page display mode. And then I can actually pin one of these pages. And when a page is pinned, I can flip through my other pages. Let me see if it's gonna let me. There it goes. And the one page will actually stay put. If I want to not have that page pinned anymore, I can select the page, click the pin again, it'll go away. Some people like that for activities maybe where you want something on the page that they're going to move over to another page, or maybe it's a reference like a formula or periodic table, something like that. You might want to keep up while you're showing or doing activities on the other page. So there's plenty of creative uses that you can find for doing that. So I definitely find customizing the toolbar to your liking can be a lot of fun, and it just makes you more efficient. You're not having to dig for a certain pen or use the eraser to erase everything. You can just keep moving and not lose your students when you're trying to find something or do something. So hopefully that's something you'll find useful. One of my other absolute favorite things is when I'm working with files. So I found out a lot and learned a lot just from downloading files from Smart Exchange and trying to edit them to kind of tweak or make them my own. The most important thing to know when you're editing a notebook is how to lock and unlock and how to group and ungroup, because you never really know Like you'll go to edit text and I can't edit the text. And it's because the text is grouped with a box and you have to ungroup them to separate the text. Another thing that can happen is, oh, I got this great Tangram activity, but I can't rotate them. So there was a mess up. Somebody made these lock and allow move. They did not allow rotate in order for me to get them to fit. So if I wanted to fix something like this, I'd have to go and unlock every single one of these individually. What I do instead is go up to edit, select all locked objects. Truly a hidden gem. I've actually shown this to people I work with in SMART and I had no idea that it existed. And now that they're all selected, I can just right click and unlock all of them. And now you'll see also my page's background is movable. So usually the first thing I do next is lock the background. And if you didn't know, Control K is the keyboard shortcut for locking. And then now I can quickly select all of these. While we're talking about selecting, you could click and hold Control to select all of these, but my favorite trick, and you've maybe used this in other programs, is just draw a square around all the objects. That selects all of them at once. And again, we're learning efficiency here. Lock, allow, move, and rotate. I don't have to do that on every single one, right? We work smarter, not necessarily harder, right? So hopefully we can get these things done quick and it doesn't feel like so much. And now when I click on these, I do get the option to rotate and to put them exactly where I want. All right, so hopefully that's another kind of cool trick for you guys. And also some other thing that it's just worth showing, I think I might have a second here, is if I select all locked objects again one more time and lock my background. If you want to group objects, you can also do the same thing, just right click and group. Let's say maybe all these objects were a little bit too big. I could group them all together, shrink them all down together, and then ungroup them. So I do that a lot if I've added a lot of images or things to my page and then realized, oh, I have too many things or not enough space. Grouping and ungrouping is a quick way to modify a bunch of objects the same and kind of shrink them all together. So hopefully that really helps you and not be so confused maybe if you download a file or somebody shares a file and you want to be able to make changes to it and you're like, I can't edit this text or I can't move this object. Odds are it's locked or grouped. And right clicking is the best way to find out, what's going on with that object. All right, how am I doing, Jen? Doing pretty good on time?
Doing awesome with time.
Great.
Yeah,
thanks,
a lot
guys.
of great information.
I can be a talker, so I have Jen here also to help keep me from spending a little too much time on things. So, so now you know a little bit more about customizing, being a little more efficient. I'm going to talk about some of the gems hidden in the gallery. So in our previous sessions we were launching, we got a little bit into the gallery, but there's so much in there. We decided to focus on some of the key things that I could see you using for teaching and learning. The widgets will be the first thing we talk about, and then we'll be looking at page backgrounds and some interactive lesson page examples. And hopefully we'll have time, I'll show you a little bit of the 3D models. So widgets and dice, people often think they're just for the younger grades, but there are ways to use these with upper grades as well. I have a few examples that are actually fairly primary to start with, but there are ways to kind of use these. Since they do allow pictures, we actually had Terry on our team as a former math teacher, said she used to put equations on these or other higher math things for the students, and then that would randomly pull those up for them to solve or to then match to a possible answer. What you see here are dice with pips or dots that are the standard dice. And then we have our image dice, and we also can add letters, text. So you can do numbers, words, individual letters. So this is kind of like a CVC activity where you could flip and put in some different things. So you're probably wondering if you've never seen the dice before, what's behind I always like to show the behind the scenes, right? By clicking on a gear, you kind of can see how it works. Although that's not the best one to probably click. Let me click this one so there's a little bit less in the way. So you can change the number of dice that you have. You can also change it from a traditional dice to text or custom. When you do choose custom, you will see that you can add pictures here and just basically drag pictures directly into this. I could actually model that really quick here by just taking something, hover it over, and you'll see how it just goes right into that spot. So what I tend to do is put all my pictures on the page, and it's where your mouse ends up. So when you're dragging on there, let go of your mouse when it's over the square, and it'll fill it with that. And then I can always switch it back.
And
So that's another
Dan,
thing to play with. Yeah.
I was going to just say that, like you said, that all these are transferable to the panel. So being able to use this file and bring it up on the board and have students interact with it at the panel is another great option.
Yes, this does work well with IQ because these widgets that I'm going to be showing you are all in IQ. One of them we're still working on getting in there is the poll tab. So since you mentioned that, maybe I'll point out that I love these poll tabs. This one's actually from the gallery, and but unfortunately not supported yet in IQ. It does work fine, obviously, in Notebook. If you do plan on using IQ specifically to run your Notebook files, I would probably recommend just using an old-fashioned poll tab. This poll tab is just grouped shapes and text together. So if I wanted to edit this, I'd have to unlock it. I'd have to go in and ungroup it. And then you can start to see all the different pieces of it to edit. And then I'm going to kind of put it back. I also set this to lock and allow just to move horizontal. That's another option. And I've seen some pretty creative uses people have come up with for when an object can only move horizontally or vertically. Really can create some fun games like that. So, and then if I show you how this one works, you can see all the different pictures I put in there, the different emojis.
And
so
Dan,
really
you shared that secondary example, but I was just thinking when you were editing that you could pull in those images that might be like pictures of maybe they're vowel blends and different things. So maybe you have one dice that has one die that has the vowel sounds or the blends in the text, and then you have another die that has images of different examples, so that when students spin the die, they can try to match up whether or not it's the EE sounds for E or EA combination.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then using the two dice, yeah, I could see that being a lot of fun. So thanks, that's a great idea. Do you guys have any other ideas you guys could think of? You can add to the chat. It's always great to share these ideas with each other while they're fresh in our minds, because then somebody can jot them down.
Yep. I love hearing what everybody has to say. They always have such great ideas.
Yep. That's the best thing teachers can do, is learn from each other, because we all have such great ideas. I think teachers are the most creative people in the world. So It's really awesome. So our next widgets are, the clock is fairly standard. You've probably seen the clock before. I always did like showing this to the primary teachers when they're learning about time, because you can go in and switch it to show the digital clock and analog clock at the same time. That way, as you're modifying the time, they can see how it changes. If you find the seconds to be a little too much, you can also click and I have to move this up. You can actually hide the seconds if you don't want those clicking around. And this one's very easy to select. You know what I forgot to mention with the dice is sometimes selecting the dice can be tricky. I want to show you guys this because the first time I tried to, try to click on them and they just keep rolling, right? I'm trying to select the dice, but it keeps rolling. What I did, and I didn't show you, is I right click on the dice to select them. Another trick is to drag your mouse over them. Oops, let me try that again. Usually that works. Now I'm grabbing things and moving them around. But I think you get the idea. By using that dragging method or by right clicking on these, you get to actually select them and not keep tapping on them. Especially when you're up at a board, it can be a little trickier because you can't right click, right? So that's when I usually do the drag and make a box around it to select it. Or if you hold with your hand on your smart board, that'll also right click on it, but it can still be a little tricky with dice. So with the spinner also, I can go like this to select it. Otherwise, if I click on it, it's going to spin. So this is one idea we came up with for asking some who, what, when, where, why, how questions. Actually, I left how out of there. I just kept the W's. But you can have, I think we determined it was like 12 segments. So you could put student names, you could put half of the class on one spinner, maybe half on the other, and that's one way you could pair the students up. Although it does repeat, so unfortunately you might have to spin a couple times if somebody had already been chosen. But there are some creative ideas I've seen people come up with the spinner as well.
Oh, yeah. So tell us what your favorite widget is and what maybe you've used and tried, and maybe some examples of how. I've seen some great things about the dice popping in on the chat about creating stories. We'd
That's
love to
awesome.
hear more.
All right, and while you guys are adding that, I'm going to jump to one of my next favorites in the gallery, our page backgrounds. So if you have a smart board, you know that you have your whiteboard with some graph paper backgrounds and lined paper and all kinds of choices. Even Lumio, we now have some nice backgrounds for you guys to use. Well, Smart Notebook has always had them. Just sometimes people didn't know they were there. I was often showing these to teachers. One way to start interacting or find these is just to go to the gallery. So over here on the left, we have our gallery tab, and I would just have teachers search for paper. All right, and when I search for paper, I'm going to click on backgrounds and themes down here at the bottom to expand that. And I have tons of different paper that I can choose from, including lots of handwriting paper, lined paper, even some kind of colored background papers. And all you have to do is double click to change those backgrounds. So I'm going to show you on this page here by going to the grid search. So a grid is another thing to search. Obviously, most of them were actually in there when I typed in paper. But if we go to this, gives you specifically the grids that you'd be looking for. And once you have that, you can double click to try them out and think, well, do I want to use this one or this one? Or do I want to use the really busy one? Or even this one. So you kind of play around until you find the one you like. And it just is basically just changing the background. It keeps everything else on your page just where you had it.
So something I'd love to share with the group that Dan, you, and Terry just recently taught me about the backgrounds in the pages is that, see, as you're searching through that little dog ear at the bottom of and you might have to correct me, hopefully I get this right, but if the little dog ear is at the bottom, it's actually a background, right? Did I get that?
Yes. Yes.
And if it's at the top, then it is a page. So it would come in as a page.
Yeah,
and I
so
thought, I always wondered what that was for. So many things. So many cool things.
I didn't really notice that either till Terry had told us. So I see here all the backgrounds have that bottom part is kind of dog-eared, and then all these are the other way. So this will actually bring in a new page as opposed to just changing the background, which is definitely a different effect.
Oh yeah.
So love for you guys, if you have Notebook up, search a little bit, try changing your background a little bit to see what you think. I know definitely people like having the coordinate grids or in the handwriting paper, or even just some nice backgrounds just to sort of change up the background so it's not just a plain white background all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then I do believe we have some kind of with alphabet ones, and then there's some seasonal stuff if you start looking at themes.
Like
so
stationery.
Yeah, it is. It's very much like stationery.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of fun to explore.
So let us know which ones you would use in the chat. I know Melody's going to pop in a question or two in there, but we'd love to hear which ones you use, which ones, maybe you haven't seen them before, and this might be your first time seeing them, all these hidden gems that Dan's sharing with us.
Yeah, and while I'm at it, I do want to point out, if you really find one that you think you're going to use over and over again, like, maybe I like this. We're going to do maybe the handwriting paper. All right, and you think this is something I might use often, you can actually add that to your content. A couple of ways here. Let me see, add to my content. So I can click this and just say add to my content. And then if I go up here to my content, backgrounds and themes, I can have my handwriting worksheet. I can put in any other ones that I like to use, the coordinate grids. So that's just sort of a quick way to add those and have them available. I do believe if I wanted to drag also, I could drag and let go of it up here. So that's another way I could put that in there. So that's another nice little tip. So besides gems, we're giving some kind of advanced tips for using Notebook as well.
Right.
All right. And then also hiding in the gallery are a ton of interactive page examples. That was something I liked about Smart when I first got into it, was I can learn a lot or be inspired by seeing something and be like, oh, I love that. And I know how I could use it with my content, with what I'm teaching. A lot of them are reveals or where you have to maybe drag something to something else. You have some Venn diagrams and some other kind of fun things here. We can't go through all of them, so you will have to kind of explore some of those, but I'll show you how to get to them. So actually, before I get into this one, we'll go to the gallery and we have this lesson activity toolkit. If you hit the plus, here's where those examples are that I was just talking about. If I click examples and expand these pages, you'll see a whole slew of page samples for interactivity to kind of make your lessons a little more fun. Instead of a static page, you get to reveal information to the students and not just the old-fashioned way like we used to with overhead projectors sliding a paper down. We do have a screen shade, of course, but this is another way to kind of release information or content to students and have good discussions about it. So the first one I'm going to demo for you guys is tap to reveal. The way this works is all you have to do is click or tap on one of these and it reveals the answer. It is basically just an object that is set to animate. So if I were to right click on this, because just like the dice, you can't click on these, you have to actually right click to select. I could unlock this. Oops, but I made the mistake of clicking on it again. If I go to the properties tab over here, I can look at the object animation, and this is set to fade out when the object is clicked. So if you do animations in PowerPoint or other programs, it behaves very similar. You have a lot of choices. Fade out is probably the best just for releasing the answer, but of course you could have something just fly off the page, instead if you wanted to reveal the information that way. So it's kind of a neat way to hide things. And then you wonder, well, how do I get them back after I've clicked on all of them? That was my big question. The reset page, unfortunately, doesn't do it. We thought, maybe it should, but the way I've always had to do it is move forward a slide, move back a slide, or move back and then forward. So basically leaving the slide, coming back, puts it back to all the animations being the way they were originally. And I do have pull tabs for all of these, and we do plan on sharing this file with you guys at the end of the session. So be aware that on all of these, you have a little helper that you can pull out. And that's one of my other favorite things about Notebook is hiding stuff off the page. You can't do that in other programs. Just not as easy, and it's just a great way to help provide supports if you're sharing these files with other people.
Yeah, lets you save like your landscape so students still have a place to work and to pull in that content without like making it very distracting with extra information. Those are
right.
cool.
You can only have so much text on a page, right? And it's just too
Right.
much. So then you can pull it out when you need it, put it away. So this is called the Magic Tunnel, or it's what we call a layered reveal. So the way this one works is I can take the word run and find out how does it change as it goes through the tunnel. And people think, wow, that's magic, hence the name Magic Tunnel, right? But if I were to move this up or off, maybe if I scroll down the page and show you guys the secret trick behind it, is really just using text colors that match your backgrounds. And so we do have all that in here in our little pull tab. And actually, even just to show you another cool feature in Notebook, in the attachments tab, I even have a little PDF file on how to create your own Magic Tunnel and work through it. But essentially, you have to ungroup, change what's on these. I would probably use the space down here to do that and then move them back up so that they're ready to use in the future. So this is a really fun activity. The kids are blown away. Of course, this would work well with math where you could say, hey, this number just switched from a 12 to a 4, and then this one just changed also, from a 9 to a 3. What pattern are we seeing? What's the function? Is like a function machine.
Yeah. Help students make those predictions and like justify their thinking about. So, even 4 corners, like move to different parts of the room to talk about why or what just happened to that number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to extend it and get the kids talking with each other.
Yeah.
But there's just some amazing stuff out there. And then the last one in here that I'm going to talk about is the 3D models. So if you just search the gallery for 3D, And these are also in the Smart Exchange. You'll find a whole bunch of these if you just search for 3D in there as well. So then you see 3D objects and expand that page. And you can see some of the ones that come with Smart Notebook. And when you click on these objects, you can grab the middle to rotate and look at the objects from all different angles. You can just spin it if you'd like as well. Also any direction. And I am pretty old school smart, and I even got to do this back in the day with the mixed reality cube and the document camera. So there was a neat effect you could do where you held a cube under your document camera. When you rotated it, the 3D objects would rotate. So any of you old school smart people out there that might have one of those cubes and a doc cam, that was another fun thing we got to do with these 3D models. And then the ones in the Exchange are really cool. So is that something you've tried at all, Jen?
I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but it's like so far beyond where I think people were possibly ready, right? At that time.
Yeah.
Like it
Oh
was
yeah.
like, wow, so powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking that was probably about 10 years ago, which is just
Yeah.
crazy that was that long ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And definitely was a lot of fun. People can even make their own 3D objects using like SketchUp. There's some pretty neat things you can do. And there's a little bit here in the gallery and a 3D warehouse that you can go to. But that's definitely, that could be a whole nother session.
Of course, yeah.
Getting into that. So definitely have fun exploring that. And we want to keep on moving to what is probably my favorite thing that was added to Smart Notebook back in the day. Is called Activity Builder. Activity Builder, there are some great examples I'm going to show you in the gallery. So that's why it's kind of connected with the gallery, but it also is its own tool. And so you'll find it by going to the little puzzle piece on the left side and clicking on the Activity Builder. Before I do that though, I am going to go in here just to show you. If I go to Lesson Examples and click Activity Builder and expand, you'll see there are 19 different pages all using the Activity Builder. Even some replaced some old sorting games that existed back in Smart Notebook before they got rid of Flash, like the Vortex. So this one down here is very similar to the old Vortex. Again, if we have any old-fashioned notebook users out there. But I'm going to start by showing you guys one of the examples out of the gallery. This one is matching the country to its location. So the way it works, I could grab Madagascar and try to put it somewhere, but if it's not right, it actually will bounce it right back to the list. But if I actually find where it belongs, it'll stay. So you can move these. Oh, that's not Alaska, is it? See, it works. You got
Immediate
Alaska.
feedback.
Yes, immediate feedback. And so once you get them all sorted, they all into place, you now got rid of the list, you've completed the activity. So obviously there's a lot of different ways you can see here that people have used it for labeling, filling in blanks, matching, ordering, a lot of the things you actually will find in Lumio and some of our games. But what this allows, I think that's a little different, is the opportunity to kind of drag them into more locations, to have more areas to sort. So for instance, I always wanted to sort into 3 categories, and Super Sort can only do 2. So I resorted to making my own. And that's one of the things I love about Notebook is I'm one of those people that if I don't like if I really want something, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. And by using Activity Builder, I can actually have 3 areas to sort. So this is a little toy box activity. And also this is available in our Notebook toolkit that we'll be showing you guys at the end of the session. And the beauty of this is if I go to the Activity Builder and I click on it, this time I'll show you kind of how it works. If I hit identify, it'll let me know the areas where there is actually what we call rules to accept or reject different things. If I click on one of those and hit edit, I can actually see the A area accepts the apple, the airplane, the alligator, and it rejects everything else. And when you're building them, it's really nice that you can just drag them in and then add all the ones that are remaining. And it kind of gives you a little check down here. Another nice thing is in the settings, you can change the animation. I actually like for it to not do anything when it's in the right place and bounce back when it's in the incorrect place. You can choose other things too, like have it fade out or spin. The problem with fade out I always found is then you can't really talk about why is apple in the
Good
A category.
point.
Well, the apple's gone. It's faded away. So we like to leave it there. Spin can be fun, but it can be a little dizzying. So really, I tend to leave the animation on none, kind of like that last activity. So they actually just stay where they're put.
And
All right.
Dan, this one has sound, right? You were able to build
Yes.
in the sound of the animal or the objects.
Yes, so that was the other thing. In settings, I can say also play the object's sound, which that's funny that I thought I had that checked, but I think maybe when I started messing with it, it went away. So if I take the apple, if I have my sound, oh, there it started to go on. It
I
wasn't
heard it.
patient. It was said apple. We'll try airplane, see if it does it this time. Airplane. All right. So you see
Very
that
cool.
this would be beneficial for those students that maybe are still learning, or they could hear apple and hear and know that's the A sound. So by adding these sounds, really helpful for early childhood.
Yeah.
And this was a really fun activity to build. And if you hit reset all, it puts all the objects back. So this is a great center or station in an early childhood classroom. The students actually figure out pretty quick how to just hit reset all and get them all back in place. And of course, you can have multiple pages of these where they could just be working through the alphabet. So our toolkit has a good example for you guys to use. All right.
Before
Yes,
you go to math tools, Dan,
yes.
I bet everybody saw all the potential that it has for
Yes.
Activity Builder and has great ideas. So
Uh,
as we transition to the math tools, you guys
Yes.
share with us in the chat, what would you use Activity Builder to build?
Yes, for sure. Because the sky is the limit with Activity Builder, right? I mean, the things people come up with, when I would work with teachers, it would blow me away, all the different ideas. So I appreciate you guys sharing those in the chat with each
Yeah.
other. All right, so while you're doing that, I'll introduce our next session, which is the math tools. Of course, all of our elementary teachers teach math, and just some of our secondary, but I think even if you are secondary and you don't teach math, you'll find some of these tools pretty cool and pretty useful. So let me switch back to pages here. We'll talk about polygons and dividing shapes, and also look at our equation editors and some other tools that are native to Smart Notebook. So first, dividing shapes. My favorite one to divide is the circle, but of course I could divide a rectangle. If I go into my little drop down, which is similar to a right click, I can say divide shape. I can choose how many sections to divide it in, and then whether I want it to show the fractions or not. That really depends on if you want the children to figure out the fraction, or if you want to let them see it. So if I hit OK, you'll see it now split it. And what's even cooler, first time I did it, I was so excited that it actually cuts them into parts. So it's like
I was blown away.
Yep. The only thing it got me with is the very first time I did it, I used a red circle
Oh,
because I
yeah,
used
that's
to always
right.
pick red, and then I couldn't see the fractions because they are red by default. So that's something just to watch out for. And this, you might think, is this grouped or something like that? No, that text is kind of built into it. There's no way to really separate it out. So if you wanted to get rid of that text, you just would have to divide the shape up again. But it can be really cool for them to try to put fractions back together, put the parts together, or even
The
just for
next
working
page.
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the next page could have the answers, right? So if you have one page that doesn't show the fraction and then the next
Yeah.
page shows the fraction, they could get some feedback that way after working through it.
Yep, and that's one of the beauties of undo, right? And duplicate
Mhm.
page. So all I'd have to do is come down here and clone my page. And then I could divide it once without the fractions and have it divided with the fractions on the next one. So
That was so easy. Couple clicks.
Yep, just a couple clicks to reuse stuff, right? We should always be reusing and not building everything from scratch. Another amazing math feature that was added a while back is showing angles and vertices and side lengths. Actually, I should have listed that as well. So if you could say show and hide vertices, and I could say show and hide angles. This was the part that absolutely blew me away, was when you modify your triangle, it actually changes it. So if I get myself to a 90-degree angle, we can see what these other ones look like. Just so cool for teaching the students the differences, obtuse angles and their acute angles. You could try to make an equilateral triangle. So just a lot of fun. And then of course I could be adding the side lengths. If we were doing right angles, we could be looking at the Pythagorean theorem and how it changes. So, there's just so much you can do with that. really love it. And the equation editors, I'll try to be fairly fast with these. Really, it's just good to know if you're a math person, you know how to use these things most of the time. You just click the add-ons at the top and choose the one with the cursor to type in equations. So as this one's coming up, you could see how I could do X, and then if I wanted it to be squared, I just click that subscript. And I could even have adding and all that up in my subscript. But you kind of get the idea. You just insert the equations and they put it right on the paper. It does insert it pretty much as a picture, well, kind of like a picture, but if you double click it, it will pull the editor back up to make changes to it. All right, and then the next one is using a pen. So that's as nice if you're up at the panel. Most of the time people are creating their equations at their computer, but you might be in one of those moments where they want to you want to do one really quick. So you could just do X plus 2, and I'm doing this with a mouse.
Very good.
Yeah. Yep. And then you can just hit the check mark and it pulls it in there, and you can move it around. This one, if you double click, it brings back up your editor again, just as the same. All right, we're getting close on time here, so I'm going to show a couple of last things. The measurement tools, which are up here natively. You have a ruler, you have a protractor, a compass. I'm going to pull out the protractor, we're a little limited in time here. And what you can do here is if I wanted to see what the angle is for this pyramid, I could pull this up and I hit the little green arrow and it actually knocks that little angle out there for me to talk about with the students. And then to get rid of these, you just select them again and hit delete and it goes away. And then just
awesome.
because I know I have like 2 seconds maybe left, I got to show you the shape recognition pen, because I show this to teachers when I visit their classrooms and they absolutely love it because, we can't always draw a perfect square or a circle.
Look how cool they look.
Or a triangle. So it's just, and even lines. If you're doing coordinate planes and you want to draw a straight line, use this tool to draw your nice straight lines. Such an amazing tool. I love it when they came out with that. So it probably seemed like a whirlwind for you guys as well. I just kind of cruised through a lot of different gems and tips in Notebook. I hope you found them to be very useful, and I know you can't remember them all. So I am going to bring us to the next slide where we have resources, right? A great place for you to go back and get these things. So I'm going to click on this. And Terry's brought up a really awesome point for people. Once you do have this file downloaded, if you drag this to your gallery, you will always have all these links saved in your gallery for you, which is kind of a cool trick.
That's so true.
But let me pull my web page up over here so you can see how this works. So first, I do want to let you know we have more webinars coming up. So I'm going to click on that to show you upcoming webinars. So currently we're doing hidden gems, but you'll see that we have IQ and Lumio ones coming up. And then November, we have Launch into Learning. So if you've not been to one of our Launch into Learning, it has some of the basics of Smart Notebook. And that's a fun one as well. And creating a notebook of Lumio in mind is going to be an awesome session about a month from now, because a lot of us love Lumio, but there's a couple of things we want to add that maybe we can't do in Lumio that we want to use for a notebook and then move that file into Lumio. So hopefully you will find a bunch of those webinars useful. And then our notebook, not guide, but our toolkit, sorry, I was looking for that for a minute. The Notebook Toolkit is an amazing resource, and it has some of the examples that we talked about today. So basically, it's a Google slideshow with links. If I click Engaging Students, you'll see that we have Reveal Activities. When you click on these, it takes you to Smart Exchange to download these templates and to see how they work. So this one had the magic tunnel and the click to reveal and a few other things. We also, if I go back to the menu, yes.
So many good things in this toolkit.
We had the spinner in this one, and then I know it was under reinforcing learning was the last one that had activity builder. So it has those activity builder examples plus a few that you didn't see. And the last little thing is we have a notebook guide, because if you want to dig deeper, there is basically everything you need to know for Smart Notebook on this notebook teacher guide, as far as adding images, working with Notebook, dual page mode that I talked about, the pen tools, widgets, all these different things. You can dig a little bit deeper using this guide. All right.
So make sure you copy that bit.ly that's in the chat so that you have all the access to all these wonderful sites and places that Dan just took you to. And you will be receiving an email. It probably will be in the next couple days, a follow-up email that has, I want to say the link to the resources, but what definitely is the best part is the recording. So you'll have access to the recording and that web page where the future webinars are. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see other recordings that have already happened. And then when you register for upcoming ones, even if you're unable to attend, you'll still get that recording that gets sent out afterwards. So lots of ways to stay connected for sure with our webinars.
Yes, thank you for adding all that. And a challenge for you guys is to try to use one of those notebook toolkit examples like the activity builder or one of those reveals in one of your future lessons that you're building. Of course, we'd love for any questions you still might have in the chat. We can try to work on those. So please hang out if you have questions or things you're wondering that you did not get answered. We can stick around for a little bit and help you with those, as well as we have a survey that is also going to be put in the chat. That survey will provide you how to access your certificate for attending the training. And another tip I want to add that Terry mentioned in our last webinar is even if you think you might not make it to the webinar, register for the webinar so you can get the recording and watch the recording to still get credit and still get the valuable information. So even if you think you might miss it, just register so that way you don't lose the valuable information.
And we're sharing your file too, right? I think I saw that
Yes.
pop up in the chat as well. So you guys have a great amount of resources to access, and even our emails. I don't know if those went into the chat yet. Yeah, but we're always available to answer emails as you're building, as you're implementing and launching out with students. We want to help you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Like I said, we will be sticking around a little bit in the chat to answer questions, but I hope you found some gems that connect with you and your teaching, and hopefully some nice tips too for being a little more efficient and quick when you're working with notebook files. So thanks again, and I'm Dan Shinneman, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. This was great. I know I've learned just from putting together the webinar session, being part of our notebook team, I've learned tons from you guys. So awesome. I'm glad we're able to share that.
Well, thanks. Thanks, and everybody have a great evening.